So I spent this morning reading every article about the killing of Mike Brown that I could, and I watched every tape from every witness to try and piece together the most accurate account of what actually happened. So first, let's get to myth number one, that Mike Brown robbed a convenience store, and then that led to the confrontation with the cops. It didn't. In fact, the cops admitted it back when this incident first occurred, that in fact the stop was unrelated to the situation that happened. So Darren Wilson did not know about this alleged robbery that happened. This altercation was separate from that. So that's myth number one that we have to bust up right away and get that out of the way. Now, the confrontation came about over Darren Wilson telling Mike Brown to get on the sidewalk. And from there, let's stop relying on he said, she said, and let's go right to the forensic evidence. And in order to do this, we'll go to the different autopsies and weigh in everything. So there was a struggle between the two of them by the police car and an altercation. And then here's what we know. We know that Mike Brown ran away, and at some point from 35 feet away or less, he was killed. So Dr. Bodden, who did the private independent autopsy, says the following. There were 6 to 8 shots fired, not from close range, because there was absolutely no gunpowder on Michael Brown's body. That's pretty important to keep in mind. There were multiple shots in his arm and one in the eye and the face with his head down. So it was a bullet that hit his head and his eye. It was the same bullet, and it was when his head was down. So here's what Dr. Bodden, who's well-known in this field and very decorated, here's what he said about this. Quote, "In my capacity as the forensic examiner for the New York State Police, I would say you're not supposed to shoot so many times." So let's pause here for a second. We have one of the top forensic experts, if not the top forensic expert in America, saying very clearly, something's off here, you're not supposed to shoot that many times. And what happened? We don't even have a trial. There was no indictment. We'll get to that a little bit later as well. So let's also go to the cops' statement at the time, the police department, to establish the distance of the shots fired. Quote, "St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmar said Brown was hit multiple times and died about 35 feet from the police car where the confrontation occurred." So again, let's be clear here. There was a confrontation and an altercation at the police car. Brown ran away, and then somewhere between 8 feet and 35 feet away, there was Officer Darren Wilson shot and killed Michael Brown. So I think that's an important fact that bears repeating, that this wasn't a situation where they were face-to-face and, oh my God, you're about to kill me, Michael Brown. I have to shoot you because you're an inch away from me. That wasn't the reality. 35 feet away from the police car is where Michael Brown's body lay to rest, where he died. And remember, there was no gunpowder on Michael Brown, so it was not up close. Now, let's bring in Darren Wilson's story. Everybody facepalm with me at the same time. You know, I'd love to hear Michael Brown's story, but I can't because he's dead. So instead, we have to hear only Darren Wilson's story. Okay, well, first of all, I read through the entire thing. First off, he lied immediately, and we know that because the police department already admits, again, that the initial stop that Darren Wilson did of Michael Brown had nothing to do with the robbery, because the times simply don't match up. But what did Darren Wilson say when he spoke to the police? Oh, the reason why I stopped him is because there was a robbery and he fit the description of the suspect. That is 100% not true. Not true, period. Not true. Okay, so we already know he lied right from the jump. CNN reports, quote, "Officer Wilson told the grand jury that Brown punched him in the face when the officer drove back to him. Wilson said he tried to get out of his cruiser, but Brown slammed the door shut twice and hit him with his fist. Quote, I felt that another one of those punches in my face could knock me out or worse. I've already taken 2 to the face, and I didn't think the third one, and I didn't think I would. The third one could be fatal if he hit me right. So, let's understand this. When the confrontation and the altercation happens, according to Darren Wilson, he's simply trying to get out of his car, and you have Michael Brown repeatedly punching him in the face. How does that work exactly? So you drive up to him, because it says when Darren Wilson drove back to him, when he drove up to him. So what exactly happened? You drove up to him, hey, you, get on the sidewalk, and Michael Brown immediately starts punching you in the face? Because if you listen to Darren Wilson, that's exactly what he's saying. I drove up, we had the confrontation, and then he started punching me in the face, and I tried to open the door, but he's just too strong, and he just punched me, and I thought I was going to die if he hit me a third time. Okay, there's already like 37 different holes in this story, and he's afraid that he's going to die from being punched. Well, maybe if that's the case, then you shouldn't be a police officer in the first place. I thought you guys were supposed to be strong and brave and to protect the people, but no, you might die if you... And again, it doesn't make any sense to say, oh, he punched me when I'm just trying to get out of my car, he punched me. So what do you mean? You just walked up to your window and started wailing on your face? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. You're omitting key details about whatever conversation you had in the middle. I don't believe that he was the 100% pure aggressor and you were 100% this angel victim who just going about your business and, oh, this big mean black guy starts wailing on my face. Now, here's a very important part. Quote, 12 shots were fired by Wilson. Wilson said 2 shots were fired during a struggle at his police vehicle, and that he then fired 3 bursts of gunfire as he chased and then backed away from Brown. Boom. This is a part that the media should be focusing on, but of course they're not. Let me repeat that. A struggle at his police vehicle, and then that he fired 3 bursts of gunfire as he chased and then backed away from Brown. So according to Darren Wilson, he even admits one of the biggest things that's on the side of Mike Brown, that, he was running away, and then I chased him. Okay, so how are you going to say it's self-defense? How are you going to say it's self-defense? If he was running away, right? So he was running away, and you go, I had to do it, it was self-defense. You just said he was running away. How is it self-defense if he's running away? That doesn't make any sense. And according to Darren Wilson, he did the same trick that Zimmerman did. Yeah, he was running away, but then I had to back away because after he ran away, he turned around and ran back to me aggressively. I don't believe you. The same thing George Zimmerman said. Trayvon, he ran away, but then after I chased him down, he turned around and started fighting me. So wait a second, we're supposed to believe that you were the aggressor the entire time, you chased after him, he ran away, and then we're supposed to believe that all of a sudden the dynamic reversed and he came back and ran at you. Now, let's get to Wilson's mindset. He said this about the struggle. He continues, quote, when I grabbed him, the only way I can describe it is, I felt like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. Again, maybe you shouldn't be a cop if that's the case. You're 6'4". He was 6'4", Darren Wilson. You're 6'4", and you feel like a 5-year-old? I mean, what was he, 7'8", 7'8"? And look, Mike Brown was big. He was a little bit taller than 6'4". So I get it if you want to say, oh, it was like evenly matched, or he was a little bit stronger. No, he was Hulk Hogan, and I was a 5-year-old. He says, that's just how big he felt and how small I felt just from grasping his arm. He had the most intense, aggressive face. It looks like a demon. That's how angry he looked. So, comparing him to Hulk Hogan, saying he looks like a demon, again, shows you something about his mindset even going into the situation, that all these negative words associated with big, scary black man, I mean, look, what was I supposed to do? It's like he wasn't human. Later on, he said this about the shots that killed Mike Brown. He said, quote, at this point, it looked like he was almost bulking up to run through the shots, like it was making him mad that I'm shooting at him. And the face that he had was looking straight through me, like I wasn't even there. I wasn't even anything in his way, just coming straight at me like he was going to run right through me. And when he gets about that 8 to 10 feet away, I look down. I remember looking at my sights and firing. All I see is his head, and that's what I shot. he's telling you the guy was 8 to 10 feet away from him. Now, again, to be clear, there are some people that say it could be as far as 35 feet away. Okay? So it could be even further. This is his story, so it's going to be favorable to him. He's like, look, even under my interpretation, 8 feet away, 8 to 10 feet away. So you shot a guy in the face when he was 8 to 10 feet away. And you're saying he was running through bullets at you? Have I reiterated I don't believe you? You know, we have this thing called physical reality about, you know, how fragile and frail the human body actually is. Nobody can run through bullets. They're not Superman. I don't believe you, Darren Wilson, and I can't believe that they didn't even get an indictment. Again, I'm saying it again. This is the 9th time I've said it, but I'm stunned. Now, let's dig a little deeper here. Let me go to the people who are the most credible eyewitnesses. Again, earlier today, I went through, read all these different articles, looked at all these different clips, tried to gather all the information I could. There are plenty of witnesses that people were using them at the beginning to support Mike Brown's story, and they're just not credible because they contradicted their stories and it doesn't make sense. So we have to be fair, we have to be objective, we have to dismiss the people who clearly are not consistent, because that means that they're flopping all over the place, they're not truthful, okay? So fair is fair, but let me go to the people who are the credible eyewitnesses who have said the same thing all along. First, CNN got this cell phone video of contractors who were working in the area right after the incident. They saw the incident. They're not far away from where the shooting happened. They saw it unfold. Now remember, these guys, they're contractors. They're just working while they're there. They have no ulterior motive. They don't know anybody involved in the shooting. There's no conflict of interest whatsoever. Okay, let's watch.
Just after 12 noon, Ferguson, Missouri. The men you see in this exclusive cell phone video hear gunshots. They are about 50 feet away from Michael Brown and Officer Darren Wilson. The unidentified person recording this video captured the witness's reaction during the final moments of the shooting. Both men were contractors working in the area. They did not want to be identified. The man on the left in the pink shirt told CNN they heard one gunshot. Then, about 30 seconds later, a second shot. He says he saw Michael Brown staggering. Then he says Brown put his hands up and said, "Okay, okay, okay." The witness told us the cop didn't say get on the ground, he just kept shooting. That same witness described the gruesome scene, saying he saw Michael Brown's brains come out of his head, again reiterating his hands were up. Watch how he motions on the video. The video, these witnesses say, was taken shortly after the shooting ended. If you look closely, you can see a police officer in the distance beginning to put up crime scene tape. Both men told us by the time it was over, there were 3 officers on the scene, but only 1 involved in the shooting. Another voice is also heard on the tape. The contractor in the green shirt told me that voice belongs to a man he didn't know who pulled up alongside them, yelling this.
He was no fucking threat at all, one person yelled. But the contractor, more importantly, said he looked stunned. He said he had his fucking hands in the air. Why did you shoot him with his hands in the air? Now, again, that's something that's consistent among all the eyewitnesses. If we're going to be fair about taking eyewitness testimony and using that as evidence, we have to be consistent in the sense that the things that are most prevalent are the only things that we should really weigh. Because there are plenty of people who have said things, again, that are contradictory, that they've, changed their story from one day to the other. We can dismiss everything those people say. We have to. But one of the things that's consistent across the board is this idea that he had his hands in the air. Now, originally people said, oh, he was shot in the back as he was running away. That turns out to be not true. If you look at the forensic evidence, again, from the different autopsies, the independent private autopsy, which, to be clear, that's the one I believe the most from Dr. Bodden, he says, no, he was shot from the front. But there is an explanation as to how exactly that unfolded. So now we go to the other most credible eyewitness, in my opinion, looking at all the different people and all the different evidence. This is Miss Crenshaw, whose house is right there by where the situation unfolded. She explains what she saw.
From my point of view, I could not tell exactly what was going on, but it just looked as if he was trying to pull him almost into the car.
Who pulled? The officer pulled Michael into
Brown.
The car.
It just looked like he was trying to do such, and Brown being a bigger fella, that didn't seem to have been working. So of course he got away, and it just seemed to have upset the officer
And then what happened?
Got out his man and just started chasing after the boy. I'm hearing shots fired. Clearly none of them hit him, but one I think did graze him, as they say on the autopsy report. And at the end, he just turned around after, I'm guessing, he felt the bullet graze his arm. He turned around and then was shot multiple times. And
the autopsy is now showing that he was shot from the front, not the back.
Exactly.
Does that square with what you saw?
Definitely, because he was running away. So when he turned towards the cop is when he let off the most shots.
So based on all the evidence, based on the dozens of articles that I read earlier today about the situation, based on all the different eyewitness testimony that I've seen, just based on absolutely everything that anybody in the general public can get their hands on about the situation, here's what I've boiled it down to. Here are the two possible scenarios. Either you had Darren Wilson drive up, again, unrelated to the convenience store incident. You have a confrontation and an altercation come about. Okay, there was a struggle. Then you had Mike Brown run away. As he's running away, Darren Wilson is shooting at him and missing. Then when he realizes, oh boy, I'm getting shot at, I might get killed if I keep running, he puts his hands in the air, he turns around. That's when Darren Wilson guns him down, anywhere from about 10 feet to 35 feet away from him. Now, the only area of disagreement that I see about this, the only two possibilities are who initiated the struggle. Therein lies the big question and the big divide, in my opinion. Based on all the evidence, I don't see really any conflicting stories about what happened after the struggle, in the sense that if you look at everything, what's most credible, and then you look at the forensic evidence, it becomes pretty clear that the latter part of that is fairly concrete. That at one point, Mike Brown ran away, he was getting shot at, and Darren Wilson missed, then he turned around, and then he got gunned down with his hands in the air. That seems to be uncontroversial. The part that's up in the air is who initiated the physical altercation. Was Darren Wilson being rough and aggressive with Michael Brown and basically telling him, like, stay right here, and trying to throw him in the back of his car or what have you? Or was it a situation where Darren Wilson was not physically aggressive at the beginning, and you had Michael Brown essentially try to get away? So let's say Darren Wilson tries to put him in the back of his car or something, and Michael Brown basically struggles with, like, pushes him off, and then they get into a fist fight, and then he tries to run away. Therein lies the disagreement in my mind in terms of people who are siding more with Darren Wilson and people who are siding more with Michael Brown. But here's my take on it. It doesn't matter, because here's the bottom line to me. If you want to use an argument of self-defense, I had to shoot. I mean, you guys don't understand. It was necessary. I felt like I was going to die. Okay, if that's the argument you're going to use, there cannot be a point in the physical altercation where somebody runs away. If the person is running away, and then first of all, if you're shooting at them when they're running away, you're wrong already. Like, I'm not having a further conversation. Don't do that. There are better ways to approach the situation. There are better ways to handle the situation. I know it's hard to sit here in my comfy chair in the studio and try to dictate the situation as it was back then, but you should never shoot at anybody as they're running away. Don't ever shoot anybody in the back. Ever, ever, ever. So, when Darren Wilson was shooting and Michael Brown was running away and he was missing, and then Michael Brown turned around with his hands up, okay, that's it, dude. That's it. That's it. You can't, there's nothing further. You cannot continue to shoot. Now, let me be clear about this. Darren Wilson, he claims that, well, he charged at me. There's no physical evidence of that whatsoever. There's no physical evidence of that. The credible eyewitnesses, none of them say he was charging at. If somebody's shooting at you with the gun, and you're 35 feet away or 15 feet away or what have you, they were just shooting at you and you put your hands up and turn around, what are you going to do? Try to charge him from 35 feet away? Charge him from 8 to 10 feet away? You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it because nobody would do it, because nobody's that fucking crazy, and black people don't have superhuman strength and skills, okay? They're not just going to walk through bullets? But that's the argument that Darren Wilson made. He said, it looked like he was walking through the bullets. I don't understand. No, I don't believe you, Darren, and there's no physical evidence to back you up. So again, the disagreement to me is, and the open question to me is, who initiated the physical altercation at the beginning? But even if you give Darren Wilson the benefit of the doubt in that respect, and you say, you know what, let's say Michael Brown started the entire conflict at the beginning, that you said, hold on, we need you to wait here or whatever, and then let's say he punched you and he got into a fight with you, and then he ran away. To me, it's still, you don't get to shoot him as he's running away, and then when he turns around with his hands up, you definitely don't get to gun him down. Look, maybe you can make a weird argument for, well, you shot him in the leg after he turned around with his hand up because you were afraid that something was going to happen after that and you didn't want to continue to struggle. Maybe there's a loose argument, a stretch of an argument to be made about, I kneecapped him, I shot him in the legs. Or I took out my stun gun and put it on high voltage and it got his ass to the ground. Or I maced him multiple times. Whatever. There's a loose argument for that, maybe, okay? But the idea that he turns around with his hands up and you gun him down, and all the credible eyewitnesses say his hands were up and he was standing there and you just gunned him down. No, what I think happened at that point is Darren Wilson, he was in this struggle, so he was really amped up, okay? He had the adrenaline flowing. He's really angry because he got into this fight and he's scared. So he sees that he's shooting at him as he runs away, and then as Michael Brown puts his hands up in the air, he doesn't care. He's already so amped up and so pumped up and so scared and got the adrenaline flowing, he just shoots anyway and he kills him. That, to me, falls in line with the evidence. But either way, we don't have an indictment. This isn't even going to trial. Now, you tell me, based off all this information I just gave you, is there any part of that that indicates that we shouldn't even have a trial? Oh, is this not close enough in your mind to merit a trial? I mean, what kind of madness is that? It's one thing if it gets to trial and, oh, there was a reasonable doubt about how it unfolded and whatever, we didn't get a murder charge. We either got a lesser charge, manslaughter, or he got off. Oh, man, that sucks. It didn't even get to trial. We didn't even get to have our day in court. There's a big, big problem in America. There are many big problems in America surrounding stories like this, similar stories like this, the dynamic involved here. And we're never going to get justice in this case because we're not even getting a day in court.